All right, guys, let's get into something that I think is on all of our minds. Keeping things exciting in the bedroom, after the honeymoon phase is over.
Yeah.
It's a question that I get all the time, and frankly, it's something I've thought about a lot myself. And that's why we're diving into the Dating Decoders podcast today. They had some seriously eye-opening insights on desire in long-term relationships, and I think it's stuff you're really going to connect with.
It's interesting because there's this expectation that the fire should always be burning, at the same intensity as when you first met someone. Like it's some magic trick.
Yeah.
But that's just not how it works in the real world.
Yeah, it's like comparing your everyday life to like an action movie or something. It's just not realistic.
Exactly.
The Dating Decoders folks, they really hit the nail on the head when they talk about how desire naturally shifts over time. So first things first, let's just ditch that pressure to always be in overdrive.
Exactly. I think that thinking that desire should be constant actually sets us up for frustration, and it can even lead to performance anxiety. Instead, what if we shift our perspective and embrace the fact that desire ebbs and flows?
Okay, that makes sense. But how do we do that? How do we reframe our thinking, especially when we're bombarded with all these messages about how things should be?
Well, one way is to understand the science behind desire. For instance, did you know that testosterone levels naturally decline as men age? It's not a dramatic drop, but it is a gradual shift that can influence libido.
Hold on, are we saying that biology is destiny here? Like we're just at the mercy of our hormones?
Not at all. It's just about understanding the playing field, so to speak. Knowing about these natural changes can actually empower us to take control in other areas. It's like knowing the rules of the game. Once you understand them, you can come up with a winning strategy.
Okay, I like that analogy.
Yeah.
So if we're not just passive players in this game of desire, what are some of the active moves we can make?
Well, Dating Decoders made a great point about how intimacy goes way beyond the physical. They talked about how feeling seen and understood by your partner is crucial, especially for building a long-term sexual connection.
That makes sense, but what does that look like in practice? What are some concrete examples?
Think about those moments when you feel truly connected to your partner. Maybe it's sharing a deep conversation or laughing together or accomplishing a goal as a team. Those shared experiences, they create a powerful bond, and that can ignite desire in a whole new way.
So it's not just about planning romantic dinners or, buying flowers. It's about nurturing that emotional connection consistently.
Precisely. And that leads us to another crucial point they made, breaking out of the routine.
Yeah, they use that analogy of desire being like a plant that needs watering. You can't just expect it to thrive without putting in some effort.
Right. And that effort doesn't have to be this grand romantic gesture. It's about finding those small, everyday ways to inject a little excitement and novelty into your relationship.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Think about trying a new activity together, or revisiting an old hobby you both used to enjoy, or even just exploring a different part of your city. It's about breaking free from the autopilot and reminding yourselves why you fell for each other in the first place.
Dating Decoders also emphasized communication, which makes sense. But sometimes talking about this stuff can feel, awkward. How do we get past that?
The key is to create a safe space for open and honest conversation. Choose a time when you're both relaxed and receptive, and approach the topic with curiosity rather than judgment.
So instead of launching into a laundry list of complaints, start by asking your partner what makes them feel loved and desired.
Exactly. It's about understanding each other's needs and finding ways to meet them. And remember, this is an ongoing conversation, not a one-time fix.
This is all great stuff, but I know some guys might be thinking, okay, but what about those times when desire just feels off? Like something's changed and you're not sure why?
That's a completely valid concern, and Dating Decoders touched on that too. They share this really interesting story about a couple in their 50s who were struggling with this exact issue. So this couple was dealing with a lot of the things we've already talked about, like routine and stress and those natural hormonal changes that come with age. But what's really fascinating is how they turn things around.
Okay, I'm all ears. What was their secret?
It wasn't so much a secret as a shift in perspective. They started focusing on deepening their emotional connection, like making time for quality time and expressing appreciation for each other and really listening to each other's needs.
So it wasn't about like some grand romantic gesture trying to recreate the passion of their early days. It was more about those small, consistent actions that build intimacy over time.
Exactly. And you know what? It worked. By prioritizing their emotional connection, they actually reignited the physical spark as well. It's like those two aspects of a relationship, the emotional and the physical, are intertwined in a way that we don't always fully appreciate.
I think a lot of guys might be hesitant to buy into that. There's this idea that men are just wired for the physical stuff, and all that emotional connection stuff is secondary.
I hear you, but honestly, that's a pretty outdated way of thinking. The truth is, men crave emotional intimacy just as much as women do. We want to feel understood and appreciated and connected to our partners. And when we do, it absolutely impacts our desire and sexual satisfaction.
That's a really important point. It's like we've been sold this narrow definition of masculinity that doesn't allow space for vulnerability and emotional connection.
Exactly. And it's not just hurting our relationships, it's hurting us as individuals. When we suppress those needs for connection, we're actually limiting our own potential for happiness and fulfillment.
So what's the takeaway here? How do we start breaking free from those outdated ideas and create a more balanced approach to relationships and intimacy?
It starts with awareness. Recognize that it's okay to have those needs for emotional connection, and don't be afraid to express them. Talk to your partner about what makes you feel loved and appreciated, and be open to hearing their needs as well.
That makes sense. But what about those times when things feel really out of sync? Like you're putting in the effort, you're communicating, but the spark just isn't there. What then?
Well, first of all, don't panic. It's normal for desire to fluctuate, and it doesn't necessarily mean something is wrong with your relationship. But if it's a persistent issue, it might be worth exploring other factors that could be contributing.
Like what? Give us some examples.
Stress is a huge one. When we're chronically stressed, our bodies go into survival mode, and sex is pretty much the last thing on our minds.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. When I'm feeling overwhelmed at work, the last thing I'm thinking about is romance.
Right. And it's not just work stress. It could be financial stress or family stress, or even just the general stress of daily life. The point is, if you're not taking care of yourself and managing your stress levels, it's going to be hard to feel desire no matter how much you love your partner.
So step one is to prioritize self-care. Got it. What else should we be paying attention to?
Well, dating decoders talked about how certain medications can impact libido. Antidepressants, for example, are known to sometimes have side effects that can dampen desire.
That's interesting. I never would have thought about that.
It's not always the culprit, but it's definitely something to be aware of. If you're concerned, talk to your doctor. There might be alternative medications or lifestyle changes that can help.
So we've got stress medication and those natural hormonal shifts we talked about earlier. Anything else we should be considering?
Lifestyle factors play a big role too. Sleep deprivation, poor diet, and lack of exercise can all take a toll on our energy levels and libido.
It's like we're talking about a holistic approach here. It's not just about what's happening in the bedroom. It's about taking care of our physical and mental health overall.
Exactly. It's about creating a foundation for a thriving relationship, both inside and outside the bedroom.
Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Let's shift gears now and talk about some practical strategies for putting all this into action. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Let's shift gears now and talk about some practical strategies for putting all this into action.
You got it. And the good news is that there are a lot of practical things you can do to keep the spark alive, even when life gets busy and those inevitable challenges pop up.
Okay, so let's break it down. Where do we start?
Dating decoders emphasize the importance of making time for each other, even if it's just for a few minutes each day. They called it intentional connection. Think of it like a daily dose of relationship vitamins.
I like that, but what does that actually look like?
It could be as simple as putting down your phones and having a meaningful conversation over dinner, or taking a walk together after work, or even just cuddling up on the couch and watching a movie. The point is to disconnect from the distractions and reconnect with each other.
So, quality over quantity.
Exactly. It's about creating those moments where you feel truly seen and heard by your partner. And let's be honest, it's good for us guys too, right? Taking a break from the screens and actually engaging with someone you care about, that's a stress reliever in itself.
Totally. It's a win-win. Okay, so we've got our daily dose of connection. What else can we do to keep things exciting?
Dating decoders had a great tip about injecting novelty into the relationship. They suggested trying new things together, both in and out of the bedroom.
Yeah, routine can be a real passion killer, but sometimes it's hard to come up with new ideas, especially when you've been with someone for a while.
That's where a little creativity comes in. It doesn't have to be anything crazy. Think about trying a new restaurant, exploring a different part of your city, taking a weekend trip to somewhere you've never been before, or even just picking up a new board game to play together.
I love that. It's about breaking out of the autopilot and reminding yourselves why you fell for each other in the first place. And hey, trying new things can be a turn on in itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It creates a sense of excitement and anticipation, which can definitely spill over into the bedroom.
Speaking of the bedroom, any tips for keeping things spicy on that front?
Dating Decoders had a lot to say about that, and it all boils down to communication and exploration.
Yeah, communication is key, but talking about sex can feel awkward, especially if you're not used to it.
I hear you. But trust me, it gets easier with practice. Start by simply asking your partner what they enjoy, what they'd like to try, and what makes them feel good.
So it's about creating a safe space where you can both be honest and open about your desires without judgment.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to get creative and experiment. Try new positions, explore different types of touch, or even incorporate toys and role-playing if you're both open to it.
Okay, so we've got communication, exploration, and stepping outside our comfort zone. Any other tips for keeping the spark alive in the bedroom?
Dating Decoders also emphasize the importance of prioritizing intimacy outside of sex. Think about those small gestures that show your partner you care. Holding hands, giving compliments, offering back rubs, or just spending time cuddling and talking.
Those little things really do make a difference, don't they?
They absolutely do. They build connection and intimacy, which creates a foundation for a more fulfilling sexual relationship.
This has been an incredible deep dive. I feel like I've got a whole new playbook for keeping things exciting in my relationship. What's the one key takeaway you want to leave our listeners with today?
Remember that keeping the spark alive is a journey, not a destination. It's about making those small, consistent efforts to connect with your partner, both emotionally and physically. It's about communicating your needs, being open to trying new things, and prioritizing intimacy in all its forms. And remember, it's okay to ask for help along the way.
Well said. That's it for this deep dive into keeping the spark alive. We hope you found it helpful and inspiring. Until next time, keep those flames burning.